Are the Seahawks doing enough to make themselves playoff contenders? Curtis, I thought that we would use this as a bit of a thought experiment stemming from our second down earlier today in 4 down territory. So Daniel Jeremiah was on with Brock and Salk this morning, and he was asked whether or not he thinks the Seahawks should acquire Trey Hendrickson. This is what he said.
Yeah, I can get on board with that. It's a window thing. You know, when you look at these trades, it's all about understanding what window you're in, and I think this is a gettable division for them right now. So, yeah, I would have no problem with that. I mean, I think more so than the whatever you're going to have to give up from a pick standpoint, it's going to be the financial aspect of it that's going to cause some concern.
It's the only.
So, this is not him saying, yes, absolutely, they need to. They're one piece away, and he makes them a Super Bowl team. What this is Daniel Jeremiah saying, the decision about whether or not you acquire an older edge rusher like Trey Hendrickson needs to be based on whether or not you're in a window. Maybe the Seahawks are. This is a winnable division. And so, Curtis, I thought that what we could do here, and we're opening it up to the text line, 866-979-3776, is talk about whether the Seahawks are in a window and whether or not they're being as aggressive as they possibly could with that window.
I think they are somewhat in a window, but it is barely cracked open.
What's keeping you from saying there's more there to seize?
I think just the development of the first and second and third year guys, I think they need to kind of get a little more seasoning underneath themselves. And I talked about it yesterday too, just kind of a little more solid plan at quarterback instead of, I mean, you've kind of now are in this like year by year thing where you had Geno Smith for 3 seasons. You've got Sam Darnold this year, and who knows what the quarterback situation is going to be like in Week 18 of this season. You did draft Jalen Milroe, but there's just no real solid, clear-cut answer right now at quarterback. So I think there are definitely pieces in place, guys who you can see a core developing of like this guy will be here when the Seahawks are back to being among the NFC contenders, like guys like JSN. Devin Witherspoon, like those are legit building blocks, depending on, you know, how these big names get moved across the NFL. Like right now you've got Derek Hall and Boye Mafe, you've got Byron Murphy, Ernest Jones is under contract. Like there's legitimately good things happening with this roster. And I think overall the direction of the organization is pointed up when after the 2021 season, when things kind of bottomed out and bottoming out here in Seattle is that 7-10 season. It felt after 2021, things were on kind of a gradual decline. 22, things maybe started to point up a little bit, especially with how good that draft class was and the kind of play they got out of Geno Smith. So it kind of feels like almost kind of doing a U shape right now. Like they're kind of on that verge of going back up. I don't know necessarily how up it's pointed, and the play of Sam Darnold will kind of dictate how that goes this year, because if he's worse than what Geno Smith was, or worse than what Geno Smith is going to be here in 2025, maybe that kind of changes things too.
Can I give you another thought experiment question? Yeah. Again, I want to keep the bigger one of, well, how big is the window the Seahawks are competing in? Is it just now starting? Should they be more aggressive? Should we be talking about them going for it the way we've been talking about the Mariners this year? Do we have a different expectation for what winning looks like when it comes to the Seahawks? I don't want to veer too much away from that conversation because I think all of it's really interesting to me, and it's why I really like that cut from Daniel Jeremiah, even though it was something he just kind of said like off the cuff and wasn't the main part. If the Seahawks were to use the number 1 overall pick of the draft this past year and they took Cam Ward, would you say they're in a Super Bowl window?
I would say it definitely ramps up their efforts, and I think they're definitely looking to put more talent around a young quarterback like that. The
reason I ask is because I'm trying to figure out how much of our hesitancy about saying the Seahawks can and should compete for a Super Bowl is just about Sam Darnold.
I think it's a lot about Sam Darnold. I think it's maybe more so than anybody else on the roster, simply because he hasn't shown himself to be that kind of quarterback yet in his career, and he's, 28 years old now. I think what this roster would look like with one of those rookie quarterbacks in the class of 2024, with like Michael Penix and all those guys, I think having a young quarterback like that on his rookie deal kind of amplifies or just magnifies, I guess, that opportunity for winning a championship, because there is no bigger head start in the NFL than having a talented quarterback on a rookie deal. You don't have that here in Seattle. You do have a quarterback that's not making top of the market money, and you've had that now for, 3 or 4 seasons, even though Geno got a significant payday compared to what he was making his first year as a starter here in Seattle, and what Sam Darnold has made, throughout the course of his career. He's making, $38 million this season, which is a huge payday for him compared to what he has been in his career. But, again, those aren't top of the market deals, and you should, be able to spend a little bit more freely when you're not paying a quarterback $55, $60, $65 million. But even with what Geno made and what Darnold's making, that's more than what, the best rookie quarterback is going to make. To me, when it comes down to what the Seahawks, are they doing enough to make themselves playoff contenders? I think they are doing enough to kind of stay relevant, which avoids going into the tank completely. But also, I think they're doing a good job of maybe learning from past mistakes of investing in the wrong players. Guys who are super talented, and guys who have all-pro careers, and guys who have been tremendous players at different points of their career. Obviously, talking about Percy Harvin and Jimmy Graham and Jamal Adams, the 3 biggest trades the Seahawks have ever made under John Schneider.
Right, specifically made to get this team to a Super Bowl.
Right, and 3 biggest trades in terms of what they gave up to get those guys. Not necessarily 3 biggest in terms of impact here in Seattle, because I would say Marshawn Lynch probably the biggest trade that John Schneider's ever made. But those 3 guys at the time, you looked at and was like, oh my gosh, they're acquiring this all-pro. You're acquiring this guy that runs a 4.3 40. In Jamal Adams' case, you're acquiring a guy who's 25 years old, entering the prime of his career. You thought it was going to be a move that would put this team kind of over the top. Jimmy Graham at the time was, if he wasn't the best tight end in football, he was the second best tight end in football. Him and Gronk were putting up some ridiculous numbers.
No one hated the Graham trade when it was made.
Right, exactly. It was one of those trades where it was they missed out on the Super Bowl. Oh, by the way, they just went out and acquired one of the best offensive weapons in football. Everything about the Graham trade that didn't work out was, a lot of it was out of Jimmy Graham's control, especially the injury.
And out of something that benefited only from hindsight. You didn't know that Unger would be what he ended up being.
Yeah.
You also didn't know that for the next 10 years, you'd struggle to build up an offensive line.
Oh, right.
You know what I mean? It's you're thinking, okay, we're giving up a first rounder, but we'd never get someone as talented as Graham, and we're giving up Unger, who hasn't been able to stay totally healthy, and we don't look at him as this franchise centerpiece.
Yeah. I think Justin Britt's the only center in the Seahawks have had since then that has started.
To be a Pro Bowl alternate.
I think he's the only center that's started multiple opening days since then.
That's
I think
crazy.
Everybody else has been a one and done here in Seattle. But you learn from those mistakes, and you don't want to invest in the wrong guys. You don't want to invest in players that, if you do give up a first-round pick or multiple first-round picks in Jamal Adams' instance, you don't want to have those kinds of trades blow up in your face. And when it comes to Trey Hendrickson, who I think is the most available player right now, that has a Pro Bowl pedigree, that has an All-Pro pedigree, he kind of falls in that camp of Jimmy Graham, Jamal Adams, and Percy Harvin, where it's yes, this is a really talented player, but would I consider this guy to be an absolute franchise game changer? I don't see it as that with Trey Hendrickson.
17 and a half sacks?
I still don't see it with Trey Hendrickson. He's 30, 31 years old. I think he is
Who else
great
on
at
that
what
defense
he
is
does.
taking attention away to help him out? I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
Right. I think it's at the point in his career, though, where he is 30, 31 years old, that he's not going to have many more opportunities to produce at that kind of level.
Sure.
You're looking at maybe 2-3 years max of potentially getting 17 and a half sacks. And who's to say he even gets that number here?
Do you get that number with Boye Mafe?
No.
Do you get it with Derek Hall?
You don't.
Do you get it with Uchenna?
You know who you get it with? Micah Parsons. That is a guy who I would trade for. That is a guy who I 100%
but that's not the conversation we're having.
It is. Are the Seahawks doing enough to make themselves playoff contenders?
So you
Trading for
think-
Micah Parsons would absolutely do that.
Would you give up a first rounder,
Yes.
multiple first rounders?
Yes.
You give up 2 first rounders.
Yes, I
would. You
would.
give up 2 first rounders and a third or a second?
I would give up 2 first rounders and Derek Hall for him. Yeah, I would. He is that good. He is 24 years old and has double-digit sack seasons every year he has played in the NFL. It's not just 2 years of production like Trey Hendrickson. It's 4, and he's 24 years old, and he is next in line to be the best defensive player in football. Like the throne that Aaron Donald abdicated after he retired, like it's going to go to Micah Parsons. Like that's how important he is to just how the NFL is right now. Like he is so ridiculously good.
Why
and I
wouldn't
get
the
that
Seahawks
his
make that trade right now?
I don't know why they haven't made that trade. I don't know why. But you make that trade, and all of a sudden, you look at this team in a much different light. You look at this season in a much different light. That is one trade that I would definitely make if I were John Schneider and if I were Mike Macdonald. And could you imagine Mike Macdonald getting his hands on a difference-making pass rusher like that? Somebody, who I think is much more multifaceted than Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah.
Because I think Hendrickson is great at getting to the quarterback, but is he a great run stuffer? Is he somebody that's going to generate turnovers? Like Micah Parsons is a weapon in a way that very few players are in today's game.
Yeah, I think that the Trey Hendrickson thought experiment that I like about this is that it makes us question if acquiring Trey Hendrickson is about competing in the next 1 or 2 years for a Super Bowl. Why can't we think of the Seahawks as competing in the next 1 or 2 years for a Super Bowl? Like, why can't we think of them as doing that? So I like that as a thought experiment. I agree with you in that the move that I'd most like to see them make is one of acquiring Micah Parsons. Not only would I love to see them make that move, I'm not finding a lot of arguments against it.
Right.
You're not getting Micah Parsons with a first-round pick.
The arguments against it are the ones that are non-football reasons. It's like his personality. How would he fit with DeMarcus Lawrence?
That's actually my mistake. I totally forgot that every member of the Legion of Boom was like this really super boring person that got along great and that like never argued about anything. How many
of them talk to Earl Thomas these days?
I call them.
Do any of them talk to Earl Thomas?
Not a single one.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Did you think that you would get a star player on defense and he'd be vanilla?
Right.
He'd be boring. He'd be bland.
It's just
he'd
the
be Mike
territory
Trout
of
tweeting out airplane emojis when they're flying somewhere.
It's just the territory of being a superstar in the NFL. Micah Parsons.
When you're an alpha, you've got an alpha personality.
Exactly. Parsons in 4 years. He's 26 years old, by the way. Just turned 26 in May. 26, 4 seasons in the league, 4 Pro Bowls, 2 All-Pro selections. Also was Defensive Rookie of the Year. He even received Defensive Player of the Year votes last season in a season in which he only played 13 games.
I feel like it's bringing me back to the other question we examined in 4 Down Territory, which is, hey, if the ceiling of this offense is that they can be like average, 15th best offense, is that good enough? If your defense is elite, yeah, I think it can be.
Yeah,
and
I think
last year's Eagles, and for that matter, last year's Super Bowl is not the best example of this because the Eagles were an incredibly well-rounded team with a very good offense, with a very good defense. And while they were flawed and while they had some problems, they were otherwise very deep, a very talented roster, very complete. So it's not the best example of saying, hey, you don't need to have the most efficient offense. But you don't. You do not.
Yeah.
And I sometimes think that when we're making comparisons of what does a Super Bowl winning team look like, when we're very honest about what Super Bowl winners have looked like for the last 15, 20 years, well, a lot of them are Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. So the argument very quickly falls flat when you start looking at like any kind of recipe to win a Super Bowl. The single most important piece, the like chicken to the chicken soup, is having a franchise quarterback. Yeah. Is it possible to get there without that guy? Is it possible to win without that guy?
Sure.
Sure. So long as you don't have that guy, you need to do everything else you possibly can.
Right. And the Eagles were successful in doing that. They were able to make their roster as well-rounded as possible without Jalen Hurts is a really good quarterback. Would I put him as a top 5 quarterback? Probably not.
I wouldn't know.
I'd say he's a top 10 quarterback in the league.
I can say for sure no. And I think he's incredibly talented and handsome.
Very handsome.
His face is so symmetrical. It's stupid.
But like the Eagles knew what they had at quarterback, and they were like, okay, we know Jalen Hurts can do a lot of things well. Is he elite? No. But what we're going to do is we're going to get elite everywhere else in every position group possible. Running back, they went out and signed the best one in football in Saquon Barkley. Wide receiver, they drafted Devontae Smith and traded for A.J. Brown. Yeah.
Constantly adding to the trenches.
Defensive line. Heck, this year in the draft, they got Jihad Campbell at pick 32 in the first round. In the secondary, they added Cooper DeJean and Mitchell, who was fantastic last year. Quinyon Mitchell, yeah. So, like, they have everything going for themselves in every other position group. And I mean, even quarterback, too. So, like, that's what it's going to take to knock off the Chiefs. That's what it's going to take to knock off the very best quarterbacks in the league when you don't have one of the 3 or 4 that could win you a Super Bowl just rolling out of bed. And the Seahawks don't have that, but you're going to need to put yourself on that path.
I just think we need to constantly balance both thoughtful planning and roster construction, which is not my expertise. That's John Schneider's expertise, not my expertise. I know that that's a reality where sometimes you're building up a group. Sometimes you do have a 3, 4, 5, 6-year plan or a 2-year plan or whatever it is. We need to balance that with also a very humble view of winning Super Bowls.
Mm-hmm.
The acknowledgement that you can by no means expect it to be your turn. One of the things that really irked me about, I didn't mind the Mariners and Jerry Dipoto being like, hey, we're going to tear this down, we're going to rebuild, we're going to do whatever.
Yeah.
Great, fantastic. I was 100% behind it. One thing that I didn't love over the course of that conversation, love the talk of building up the farm, love the talk of, keeping pieces that you want to draft and develop, finding your core, loved that their identity was going to be pitching in a pitcher-friendly park. I love all of it. I wanted them to be more aggressive in free agency, and also I didn't love the angle of eventually the Astros will fall off. I hated that take.
Right, because the Astros want to win just as much as you.
So entitled. It was so entitled. The idea, so preposterous. The idea that, like, oh, well, you can count on someone else. Your ascension surely will correspond with this other team's descension. That's not how it really works.
Stacey, Chiefs will fall off eventually.
Sometimes you get fortunate enough and it works. Do you think you would laugh in the face of Pete Carroll, God love him, and the Raiders front office if you heard from them? Well, the Chiefs have won for so many years. Eventually, exactly your point.
You got to go out and get
Eventually, you got to go. No, they'll never stop. They will never stop.
So long as those pieces are in place, they are going to continue to try and build a championship roster.
Consider that as being hubris we don't like. And I'm not saying that, like, Dipoto was championing that take. I'm saying this became kind of a conversation we were all having that was irksome to me. Consider how much we hate that take, and then apply the same logic to the Seahawks. Well, now hang on a minute. You can look at your team as like, hey, we're building this up. We do want to build up a Super Bowl team. It's going to take some time. You got to develop these young guys. All of that's fundamentally true. But at no point can or should you expect that your time will come.
Sure.
Sometimes you need to pry open your window. Sometimes you need to see a door cracking open and kick it down. Sometimes you do need to be aggressive in a time that doesn't perfectly make sense yet because it's a little early, but it's just what you need to do. Maybe it's Hendrickson. Maybe it's Parsons. Maybe it's not a trade at all, but it's drafting a quarterback earlier than you thought you would. Whatever it is, you can by no means look at it and go, well, this is our blueprint for when we're going to compete to a Super Bowl in 2029. This is exactly what it looks like. You don't know that.
Right.
You don't know. What if the 49ers turn things around? What if a team out of nowhere? What if the Bears become a powerhouse? You have no idea. You aren't in other war rooms.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going to happen or break for other teams. You have no idea who's going to emerge and be the next superstar to come out of the 3rd or 4th round out of nowhere.
Well, and every year there's a team that outperforms expectations beyond all measures. Like, there's going to be a team that we're thinking of as a 5-win team that's probably going to win 12 games this year. Like, that's how it goes every year in the NFL. You mentioned kind of measuring other teams' windows, Stacy, and that's why I think the next couple of years are going to be of the utmost importance for the Seahawks to really put their foot on the gas pedal because, I mean, Matthew Stafford, beyond this season, can anybody guarantee that he's going to be, like, serviceable this year?
No, he's going to be 47 next year.
Right. He's going to be in a wheelchair. But, like, he just now started practicing. Like, is he going to be able to make it through 18 games? And then is he going to be able to do it again next year and the year after that and the year after that? That remains to be seen. The 49ers are kind of nearing the end of what this run is as guys continue to get older, like Trent Williams and George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey and whatnot. They do have Brock Purdy in place, but how are they going to be able to build out that roster around him? The Cardinals are kind of a wild card in the division in that, like, they're improving, yes, but Kyler Murray seems to be one of those guys that maybe doesn't elevate your ceiling so much. So like there is going to be opportunity here for the Seahawks to take advantage of. So within the next couple of years, like, get that quarterback situation figured out, and then also go out and start looking at superstars to add. And when a superstar like Micah Parsons is available, it's very rare in the NFL that ever happens. So I would imagine 31 teams in the league are definitely looking at this Cowboys situation. And, you know, we've got some sound coming up from Adam Schefter basically saying, like, he doesn't think that the relationship can be repaired. So if that's the case, then everybody's got to be in on this, because it's going to be quite the frenzy if Parsons does become available.
I take it you are in on acquiring Micah, out on acquiring Hendrickson, but not because you don't think the Super Bowl window could be now if things break right.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Look, Trey Hendrickson is a really good player, a great player even. But I just don't think his timeline matches the Seahawks timeline, where I think he is looking for an opportunity to win a Super Bowl now. And I look at what the Seahawks are and where they're at in their sort of build. I don't even know if it's still a rebuild. I don't even know if they ever underwent a rebuild. But I just think that Trey Hendrickson's probably looking to win a Super Bowl within the next couple of seasons. And with where the Seahawks are, they still got a little bit more work to do.
I do agree with you, and it's fundamentally, like you said, because I look at Sam Darnold and just don't have positive answers that I feel great about. That being said, I do think that we need to raise the bar. The Seahawks already have the Seahawks are competitive. The Seahawks themselves look at themselves and want to be great. This is about how we're talking about it. I think just collectively, we can't simultaneously say they should win more than 10 games and make the playoffs, and also they're building. No, like, you're going right now.
Right.
You should expect that Devin Witherspoon continue to develop. You should expect fairly that your offensive line improve. You should expect that your run game be really good if that's who you want to be. You know what I mean? Like, you should have these expectations, be disappointed when they aren't met, and be elated when they are. But, like, I feel like sometimes we're like of two thoughts here. And I say we as a royal we. I know that some of you aren't. Some of you are all in on, like, Super Bowls happening this year. But I think we get, like, of two minds when it comes to the Seahawks, where we allow a lot of room for, like, they're growing, they're learning, they're figuring it out. And then also aren't honest about, like, they missed the playoffs by a fifth tiebreaker. Were they the best team in the NFC? Absolutely not. Were they better than the Rams last year? I don't think so.
No.
But eventually they got to prop that window back open. You can't sit and wait for it and just think, like, oh, we'll draft and develop our way there. You got to pry it.
You got to be.
And according to Curtis,
aggressive.
that means you trade for Micah.
Exactly.